Okay, today I'm just going to give you an idea on how to make up a paddle. So as you can see, I've got everything laid out. First of all, we have the shaft and the two blades. We have hand grip, shrink wrap, tape, sandpaper, a measuring tape, hacksaw, heat gun. You can just use a hot air dryer. Glue, this is a epoxy, super strength epoxy, and then just a small piece of plastic to do the mixing on. And as you can see, I've already mixed some and I'm just using a cotton bud to mix it with. Right, so the next part is to measure the paddle. This client wants a paddle that's 201 centimeters. So 201 centimeters. So the first thing you do is you measure the blade. You're measuring it up to where the shaft will go up to, so the rest is the spigot, and you measure it down the center to the middle of the blade. And so this one is 51 and a half. And then the shaft, I need to measure the shaft, and so 51 and a half, two of those, that is 103 centimeters, and so it means I want to have the shaft at 98 centimeters. So I've cut the shaft, and the next thing you do is you get your sandpaper and you roll it around your finger and you get it into the shaft, and you do lots of sanding. You do that for about 30 seconds. The reason is that a lot of the shafts are made on a metal mandrel, and this will have a release agent on it, and if you don't sand it off, then your paddle will spin. So I've sanded this one, and now I'm ready. I've got my glue ready. It's been mixed. This is quite a slow setting epoxy, and it's been mixed a couple of times, been sitting in the sun, so it's ready to go. And I'm always super cautious about which blade, so I always do the right hand side first. As you can see, so this is a kinetic blade, so I just pretend I'm going to paddle with it, and so I know what it should look like. So the first part is I get some of the epoxy and I just put it on the inside of the shaft. Just a good liberal amount, and it really depends on how much room you've got in your shaft and your paddle blade going in there. So this is quite tight, so I don't need a lot. Then I get some and I spread it onto the spigot, down the far end mostly, and just spread it around. You'll notice I've got a set of gloves on. I can always take them off and put a new one on, that way I keep my hand nice and clean. And right, so the next part is I put it into the shaft and I just keep rotating it. You can see the build-up of glue as it's pushing it up. So I just get my cotton bud or whatever your mixing stick is, and I just keep working it up. Okay, keep it nice and tidy. And this is a really tight fit, so the epoxy is acting actually as a bit of a lubricant, otherwise there's no way I'd be able to get this in nicely. So once it's all the way in, I just run this cotton bud all the way around, pulling off any excess resin, so it's got a nice finish. Okay, and so now I get some tape, and this can be replaced at a later date to make it look a lot better, but at the moment I'm just using some red tape. So this is a PVC insulation tape. It's basically what you use for electrical wiring. It doesn't stick to the glue, so it comes off quite easily. And I'm just taping over the glue area. I started on the dry spot so it really grips, spinning it around and going up the paddle blade a little bit and trimming it off. Okay, so the next part is super easy. I lay my paddle blade on a flat surface, and then I'm going to put on the hand grip. So the first thing I'm going to do is my hand grip's going to go over here, and so I'm just going to roughly sand it to key the shaft. Okay, put that down, and I'm going to just put a little bit of glue on the inside of the key, and not too much because this will get spread around quite nicely. And then I lay, blow off the dust, I lay the key onto the shaft, put it on a nice flat surface, and I tape this into place. Some people don't do that, but I like it because it gives me a couple of marks when I'm paddling as well, and just, I guess, minor finger locators, so you'll feel the texture of the tape slightly under the shrink wrap. So I put that on nice and tightly. See, it's all lined up with the back of the blade. Sorry, hold that in the center. So it's lined up with the back of the blade. It's nice and square. It's at the end. And now I put on the shrink wrap. Slide that over, taking care not to lift any of the tape edges. There you are. And next thing, I'll just apply the heat gun. Okay, I have my heat gun, and it's not plugged in properly. Aha! There you are. So heat gun, and this is quite a hot heat gun, so I keep the heat gun quite far away, taking care to go up and down and not keep it into one spot. And I rotate it around just so it shrinks on really nicely. Right, so that's all there and ready. So now what I do is I'm actually going to leave the paddle for the resin to set, and I'm going to stand it upright. So I'll actually end up doing this in the sun, slow setting epoxy. But what I want to have happen is I want any of the resin that's been pushed up in the shaft to then flow down and around the spigot. So I've got a maximum amount of glue holding the spigot onto the blade. Sorry, the spigot into the shaft. So I'll just leave this standing vertically outside in the sun, and then I'll come back later on and do the other blade. Okay, so we have one half of the paddle, it's made up, and the resin has gone off, it's fully set. We now need to do the other part, so it's again repeating the same process, starting with some resin I've made up and We're coating the inside of the shaft now. This resin's nice and warm, so good and runny. Okay, same thing, just a little bit on the spigot, and again it's only a little bit because this is a really nice tight fit already for the spigot into the shaft, so I'm not going to need an awful lot of resin to make it work. Now the second part, this is going to be quite a tight fit, and I'm also going to be compressing the air in there, so I'm going to be wanting to turn it quite a lot when I'm working the spigot into the shaft. You can see there's an excess of resin already building up. Again, I just spread it around a little bit, trying to keep it tidy and get off a little bit of the excess, and just spreading it around up the spigot to where I want it to go, and keep rotating it. Right, now I'm going to need to set the angle for the paddle, and I'm quite lucky in that I have another paddle that the clients told me the offset, so I'm basically going to be lining it up with the other paddle to make sure that it's going to be the same offset. So lining up the bottom blade, and I'm lining up the top blade. So now I've got it all lined up, but it's probably worth doing just one final check and making sure I've got the length correct as well. Remember the client was asking for a 201 centimeter paddle, so I'm just going to check this. Yeah, I mean, they are paying good money. Perfect. Right. Now I'm just tidying up the resin around the top of the paddle, and I'm going to apply the tape. Now remember this is excess to what I really need just for a tidy finish, but this is just so it can set, and the glue is going to be looking all clean and tidy. Now a lot of people may put some winding, some Kevlar winding around the top of the shaft. This is so to protect the shaft from splitting open. But this particular shaft, so this is a shaft from Streamlight, it's called the CXT, and it's already got winding around the top of the shaft to stop it from splitting open. And personally I prefer not to put any extra winding, because if something's going to break, I prefer the shaft to break rather than the paddle blade, because it's cheaper to replace the shaft, and they do tend to wear out more than the paddle blade. So now that this is fully taped up and ready, same process. I will store it vertically on the end so that the resin will flow in and around the spigot if there's any gaps in there, and it'll fully set. And it's a really nice hot day, so this particular resin should be set in an hour, but won't be able to be used for 24 hours. I hope you enjoyed the video and that has been informative.